Hello everyone, and welcome to today's live stream, where today we'll be doing a lot, because I'm going to be away for a bit, and I want to make sure you're all up to date with all the new stuff I'm working on. But yes, first thing we have going on today is the Mimic effect has been updated to Blender 4.3. The last time I worked on both of these versions, the Spike version and just the Tendril version, was in Blender 3.4, which was a long time ago. So that is now updated, and there's a link to there if you want to go and get it. But yeah, mainly it was just updating a few things, like getting rid of deprecated nodes and just adding in panels and all that, which is very nice. I still really like this setup. Because again, like just the geometry nodes, it worked out so well, even in such an old version, so I didn't have to change all too much. But it's looking very nice even in Eevee Next, which was the main motivation for this, because quite a few changes have happened in Eevee's rendering, but we can see that that looks very nice. Let's go and look a little bit at the internals, because like this version isn't all too complicated. Let's look at the arm tendril parts. So here we can see that, you know, I just resample the curve that was created, duplicate the elements so that we can get more splines, because, you know, you can add in more if you want, you know, twist it and all that. And if you go and get the product, you will never have to look inside the geometry node tab, which I should probably stop looking into here to give you an accurate impression of like how you're going to use this. I'm not going to go over it in too much detail because we have a lot to get to today. But mainly, I just added like controls for like the noise speed instead of having a driver, which is very nice. And just the options for trimming the curve, the tendril count, you know. Panels help a lot with a lot of this. But we can see that it's working very well even in the newer versions of Blender. So go pick that up if you want. And let's see, oh, that was only 2 minutes. We need to spend a little bit more time on this one. Yeah. So here we can see if we trim the curve, the parts of the tendrils retract and then extend, trying to mimic the effect of the mimics in, what was the movie called? Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah, that was, the alien design and that was quite cool. And ever since Geometry Nodes was first created, I would try to recreate the effect, which I believe in 3.0 I was able to recreate it okay. And then, you know, this version came out. But yeah, in this case, the setup is controlled by a rig, so we can move these parts and the tendril will follow along, as we can see there. I don't recommend stretching it too much, but we can see that it works quite well. So you can animate this walking around. It is a bit more manual than the other version, but it works out pretty well. And yeah, that is that. So we're at 3 minutes. I think 3 minutes is good enough for this. So let's go and switch over to the other version. So let's go and open that up really quickly. This is the Tendril version, which uses geometry nodes quite a bit more because it procedurally generates the tendril placement. So it's very amorphous. It likes to change shape all the time because there's no rig on this one. As we can see, oh, the camera was zoomed in on the camera. But we can see right here that just goes along and does its thing. So the way that this one works, people really loved this when it first came out, which I think it came out like maybe 3 years ago at this point, but it just needed a little bit of cleanup, you know, panels, just a few optimizations here and there. But let's go and look at the internals, which if you go and get this product, you won't need to look inside, but let's just do it just for, you know, history's sake, shall we say. So here we have a surface object, in this case the floor object, and we scatter points on that. And then while we're there, we go and instance the tendril shape onto there, which looks pretty good. And then when all that's done, we go and delete the ones that are outside of our kind of sphere of influence. And then we go and set the position to be close to the center, so that it looks like it's moving rather organically. And we have some noise going into the center position. And then after that, we trim the curves, which this is where all the magic happens and makes it look like it's kind of growing into place and all that. And then a lot of other stuff to like displace the tendrils and all that, but it's not the most complex setup. But yeah, a very nice design. People loved it, and it just needed a few edits before it was ready to be brought into the new era of Blender. But now it's out. Again, a long overdue update, but it is now ready to go. Only on Gumroad, I should mention, because Blender Market doesn't really exist anymore. And I'm not sure if I should go and update all my stuff on Superhive, which is the new name for Blender Market. Not sure. At the moment, I don't feel like managing two storefronts with different standards. Because on Blender Market, for those of you who don't know, I don't think they can use MP4s. Maybe they updated it when they updated the branding, but you have to use GIFs to have videos that are not like embedded, and it was very annoying to work with. And also the cut is like 35%, but that's besides the point. Anyway, so yeah, it's up on Gumroad. Go take a look at it if you want it. And with that out of the way, we could do a little bit of playing around with this before we move on, because this is one of my favorites. We get all kinds of attributes to go and work with, different gradients, so we can color this and do whatever we want. So here's like the Y gradient, which is used in the UV, the regular gradient, which is just the center outwards, random per tendril, and then the fall off, which is like the animation influence, or like how extended it is. So we can just go and change this up to be whatever we want. So classic thing, something that I always do with these kinds of things, is I'm going to make it pasta. So, for context, I am Italian, so I do love my pasta. Have it every single day. We can see right here, yeah, we can make it into a nice little pasta monster. Even though that's like a mixture between mac and cheese and pasta. But yeah, what other things can we do? I don't know, let's turn off the subsurface scattering and add in a little internal glow, just for fun. Let's use the layer weight. And then let's use a map range, and then we'll use the LG light fall off. This is just testing, just for fun. Wow, it's been a minute with that one. Yes, it has been years since I've taken a look at it, because it's just been rather solid. But since, you know, Eevee Next came out and all that, it's definitely needed a little boost. Little boost. Yes, let's change this to more of a... Ooh, I quite enjoy that a lot. Ooh, that's pretty cool. I quite enjoy that. Let's go and plug in the normal to the layer weight and see if that gives... Ooh, I'm going to be saying that a lot just because this project was really good. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Oh, look at that. Now that is some sort of lava spaghetti monster. I should make a post with that. That would be good. But yeah. I do quite... Wow, look at that. The colors. I don't have... Now, in the conversion to Eevee Next, the bloom got removed from the panel here, so you would have to add that in compositing. But in this, with the default settings for the scene, it wasn't really needed. But for just this version, we're going to add it. And since we're in Blender... Oh, where are the nodes? Maybe I deleted them at one point? I don't know. Let's add in the glare node. I am in Blender 4.3, and that's just so that people can use it in older versions of Blender, but will work in Blender 4.4 and all that. You know, any later version. Let's go and do this and enable the viewport compositor. Ooh, that's looking very nice. Very, very glowy. Should I go and change it so that it uses AGX? Because, well, technically it is more accurate at higher values. I still prefer Filmic. Just because, like, even though they clip, it's still so good. So good, yeah. Look at that. So yeah, if you ever want a lava spaghetti monster, go take a look at the product, which is up on Gumroad. Again, first thing in the chat. But yeah, I think that may be enough. How far are we? Oh, 10 minutes. That seems pretty good. I think we may pivot to the new constraint that I'm working on, which I'm hoping might be able to be put into Blender in some, like, maybe, probably not 4.5, or maybe 5.0, not too sure. But I've made quite a few changes that will make it much more useful for people going forward, and much easier to use as well, due to developer feedback. But yeah, let's just stay here for just a little bit longer, because I'm having fun with the colors. Yeah, we could always come back to this later. And also, we're going to play around with the surface deform modifier because I have some cool things I want to try with it. Look at all that. Oh, I do quite enjoy red. Oh wait, let's go and use a color ramp for that. So let's use the gradient into a color ramp to change the color the further away it is from the core. So let's go and do this. We'll change that to there. We should see, yep. Ooh, that's looking pretty cool. But maybe let's go, Oh wait, this looks like gummy worms. Aw, how about that? I could just go and fade that. Wow, yeah. So if you ever wanted a gummy worm monster, you can go and make that. I kind of like the greens that are happening here. I want to... I don't know, I could make this into a vine-like monster, but let's just try that really quick before we move on. Ooh, metallic, ooh. A little too metallic for my tastes, but who knows. Let's go and lower it by a bit. That would need some work before it, like, properly looks good, but that, that doesn't quite look the best. Maybe it needs some subsurface scattering. Maybe a bit more like that. It almost helps, but nah, not quite. Let's revert that to the cool looking version before we move along. Oh yeah, we can leave it at that. Look at that. That's so cool. So cool. All right. Oh, and one last thing, like the noise texture, that's just using the UV map that's generated, which works quite well. Quite well. Okay, we are at 11 minutes and 12, no, almost 12 minutes. Okay. Let's read the chat. Technically, you can use raw and convert to AGX in the compositor after you applied the gamma you want. Oh yeah, I could do that. It's been a while since I've done Gleb Alexandrov's course on like color correcting in DaVinci Resolve, I believe. But yeah, color correction is something that I do neglect with my projects because, I don't want to do too much of that with a product that I'm going to be selling. But yes, let's move on from this. So I'm going to be booting up stuff that is not available by default in Blender. This is going to be a custom build that I'm working on, which technically, if you know how to build Blender, you can go and use it, but yeah. Let's see, let's go and boot up the build. One moment, everyone, while I go and get it ready. Okay, oh, it's almost ready. There we go. So in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we're here. So you may be wondering, oh, how is that camera moving to all of these empties in a collection? Well, that is due to the constraint that I'm working on. So it's pretty close to its final form, I would say. A lot has been streamlined, optimized, all that fun stuff. But this is a new constraint that gets attributes from a piece of geometry and then applies it to the object's transform. So in this case, it's getting a transform attribute, which is in this case a 4x4 matrix, and from geometry nodes, and is just applying it to the object transform. So here we can see that we have just one point here that is going through the different transforms with the empties right here, just interpolating between them, and then it's just doing that. So procedural camera controls using geometry nodes, which is quite nice. We can add in however many cameras you want, and it will just cycle through all of them, depending, like, if you sample that part of the index. But yeah, that's just put onto this one point, and then this just reads it, and then applies it to the object level. A much needed level of communication between geometry nodes and objects, and just generally attributes and objects. So what about this is new? What's actually changed since the last time I've shown this off? Well, let's go and just add, let's just do an icosphere and shrink it down. I've added new modes, or new data types. So in this case, the default has changed from a transform attribute to just the position attribute. So if we select this object, we can see that it'll snap to the vertice, which Well, it's not the biggest thing that you've ever seen, like, wow, this opens up so many new paths. Well, actually, no, I don't think index sampling works for vector attributes in any other modifier. But in this case, it's just a nice, like, intro, a little tutorial for people who want to know how this node works. So with that, we can just read the data and it'll just go onto there. But we can do so much more. We can read quaternion attributes and 4x4 matrix attributes, which that is where the power is. Let's see. And then, like, you have options for, like, all that. You can change the domain. So in this case, let's do a nice little demo. In this case, I'm going to store the face transforms. So right here, I'm going to go and set this to be a 4x4 matrix. Let me read the chat real quick. Let's see. I like to use Filmic with very high contrast. Yeah, that's usually what I run just because it's so convenient, as it is the closest to the default ACES look. Sort of a poor man's ACES without going full ACES workflow. Yeah, I have used ACES in the past, but I do like the convenience. Let's label this transform. Then we'll do that. Then we'll use a combine transform. And then just put in the face's position right here. And then for the rotation, we'll use the normal. So let's get normal and then an axes to rotation. Now this is a little bit in the weeds for, like, it's not exactly a simple setup, but it will be very useful for just communicating between geometry nodes and the object level for stuff like rigging or just procedural effects. So in this case, we will set this to be a 4x4 matrix so that it will actually transform the position, rotation, and scale. And then we will change this to be the transform attributes, and then we'll change this to be the face domain. And we can see right here, maybe this wasn't the best object, but we can see right here that's affecting both the position and the rotation. And then if we were to move this object on the mesh side, it'll move along and be firmly attached, which is quite nice. Now technically you want the tangent to be the secondary axis and then you can put in the scale, but I'll leave that for later. And then if you move just the object itself, it won't carry along unless you check apply target transform, just so that if you want the raw data without taking into account where the object actually is, you can do that, which is quite nice. Again, just a nice layer of communication between geometry nodes and the object level without having to do the old methods like parenting a object to a triangle and then moving that triangle with geometry nodes, or having tons of empties. It was just a major pain and inaccurate in quite a few cases, which I think I have some tests here that showcase this. I'm going to link the pull request in case anyone has any feedback, because I am quite open to feedback regarding its design. I'll put that in the chat. So if you have any feedback regarding the design, please let me know, because that would be very appreciated. But we can see right here with these tests that the it's not exactly all too accurate, shall we say. The triangle parenting, which is quite unfortunate. But yeah, the constraint is just to get accurate data and just paste it right from the geometry to the object, and the possibilities are quite extensive. A lot of stuff can happen with this. Like the weirdest one that I've tested, and we can see I misspelled test. How did I misspell that? That's not even close on the keyboard. Anyway, right now this armature, because this works with bones as well, which is quite nice, is being sheared by a matrix that is set up. So normally you wouldn't combine a matrix because that's just too complicated. You usually don't want to do that. But if you wanted to, you can go and just shear objects using this directly, which I don't think you can easily do with other constraints. So again, and I don't think you can do this with a triangle either. So this is kind of, if I am correct, which it's a 50-50 shot, this may just be brand new functionality, which in niche cases may be very, very useful. But again, the main purpose is just, you know, a layer of communication between geometry nodes and the object or bone level. Like in this case, we're doing procedural animation to make the character fly around. Now this could be driven with, say, a simulation or something along those lines, and it would be quite good. So technically, I guess wiggle bones may be, well, no, that would need communication between the bones to geometry nodes and then back, which would be a pain. So just wait for bone nodes to come around. This is like not a temporary fix, but just it fixes a lot of like, oh, we need constraint nodes, bone nodes, and stuff like that. This is like a nice alternative, which while it's not ideal for those scenarios because you would want to have editors for those, it's just nice to have the base functionality in, just being able to do stuff inside of this very nice UI and then port it over to that level without the massive workarounds, which is very, very nice. Yeah. Let's see, 4x4 matrix. From here, you know that is black magic. It all depends on how you think about it. Because if you think about a 4x4 matrix as a location, rotation, scale, or translation, rotation, and scale, it's not too complex. Now, if you go and look at the combined matrix node, it becomes a bit more complex, because the rotation and the scale are kind of one inside of here, which is why sharing can exist. Because, like, yeah, this is both the scale and the rotation being affected. The math behind it is complex, but the easiest way to think about it is just, oh, location, rotation, and scale all combined into one. So just think about it like this. Like, under the hood, Blender has functions for combining a matrix by location, rotation, scale, and by just, you know, making it with the raw values. So it's nice that we have that functionality there. While 4x4 matrix attributes aren't really featured anywhere else in Blender, like exposed to the user in this way, it's good to be able to edit those somewhat manually. Because again, this is quite funny. I believe right here, yeah, I don't quite, oh wait, no, that's row 4, we don't want to change that. Oh wait, that, oh, yeah, row 4, that doesn't, that is still a bit of a mystery to me. I've seen the explanations and I don't really understand it. Yeah. But here we can see, like, we're moving the relative z axis of the matrix. So we can make this twice as tall, 3 times as tall, and so on. Like, they've been using 4x4 matrices since the Nintendo 64 days, and probably a lot longer before that. So it's just a constant, but usually we just don't see it exposed all too often. But yeah, I would like to showcase more with this setup, like making a procedural walking setup that actually affects the rig, but unfortunately in this build it's the make light version of Blender, so inverse kinematics do not get installed or built along that. So with this rig, the IK literally will not work because it's not in this build. But if you make it full, then you can go and do all that. Like subdivision, if we go and try to subdivide this plane, we will see that Open Subdiv is not built. So we just cannot subdivide inside of this version of Blender, which is very, very funny. Like, would I like to make the full build? Yes, but that would take like 20 minutes, and I don't want to wait that long. Or maybe even more. I forget how long it takes. But yeah, the ability to control objects and such directly with geometry nodes instead of having to beat around the bush. But yes. And also, in terms of changes that were made, some of you who have seen this setup before will know that there used to be different sampling options, like sampling by index, by the nearest element, or randomly. And it was recommended by some of the developers to remove that just for simplicity's sake, and to be honest, I agree, because it just makes it so much simpler to deal with. Just to be like, okay, we're just sampling the index, that's very clear, it simplifies the code by a ton, and then all that works out so well. It's very, very nice. What else do I need to go over? Alright, vector will only affect the location, quaternions will only affect the rotations, and then 4x4 matrices will just be location, rotation, and scale, and sharing if you decide to do that. So again, so many options that would be greatly appreciated. And the icon is just A with dots, because I was like, oh, yeah, that seems pretty apt, but that may change in the future. Yeah, that is that. So I think we're almost at 30 minutes, so I think this is good for this segment of the stream. Again, we're getting many topics in today because I'm going to be out for a little while. I'm going to be going to a cool place to meet some cool people. You'll see a little bit of that most likely soon. But not on here. I'm not going to be streaming from where I'm heading. Because that would be very annoying, and I want to take a proper vacation. But yeah, cool stuff. Cool stuff. All right. If you have any questions, please ask them now. Again, any feedback that you have regarding this constraint, even if you don't download the build, please just put them like where the pull request is. I would greatly appreciate it. I've heard that this is somewhat similar to like USD's... Oh, what was it? USD has something like geometry constraints or something like that where it reads attributes, so it may be similar to that. Which I need to look into that more, that would be good to look into just to standardize it. But again, just getting more communication and between different parts of Blender, which is always appreciated. Let's see. Bro, I've been following you for some time, but I still don't know what you do or what specialty. Do you mind sharing about you? Because you know way too much about Blender. Well, let me share with you my brief backstory. 10 years ago, I downloaded Blender because I wanted to make Minecraft animations. Skip forward about 5 years to when COVID hit and I graduated. I was like, I've done this as a hobby on and off for a while. I should turn this into a job. And then maybe a year or two after that, after freelancing on and off for a while, it became my job. And that job consists of making assets, fixing up like CAD models, stuff like that. And for like sometimes real-time stuff, sometimes not. And my most recent big project that I've worked on was the Sonic movie, Sonic 3. I got to work on some very cool technical stuff for that, using some pretty interesting tools that you may or may not have seen something like in recent memory. But yes, that was the biggest part of my career, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity. But yes, a lot of cool stuff. So I mostly deal with the technical aspects. And we're seeing some of that. I want to expand Blender, because if I'm going to be using Blender in the future, I want the tools to be as good as I want them to be. So that's why I'm working on some geometry nodes. And again, just for those of you who don't know, the camera info node and instance bounds nodes. Let's see, let's get that in bounds. Come on. Both of these nodes are now in the main version of Blender, so these will be public for everyone to use in Blender 4.5. Both these nodes were a bit more complicated than I thought they would be at first glance, especially instance bounds. That took a while, but thankfully the developers were there to help me out, and now both of these are available. The camera info node, basically makes accurate camera calling possible, which is very nice. People have been wanting that for a long time with the projection matrix. And then you get all this other data. More could be added over time, but bloat is an issue with a node that's already this big. And then the instance bounds node, well, it does what the name implies. I'll give you the min and max bounds of the instance's geometry set. So yeah, that is good. Again, it's like the bounding box node, which I reused some of the code, not as much as I would have liked, because apparently switching it to work with fields was a major undertaking for someone who is not all too experienced with that. But yeah, this one works on just meshes and outputs a singular value. This one works on instances and gives you a field of those values. Let's see. Houdini, I have used Houdini for important projects, but my main is Blender and geometry nodes, just because Blender is used in many situations, and geometry nodes just makes me a lot more powerful in those scenarios. So since I'm going to be using Blender a lot in my future career, again, Houdini is absolutely amazing. I love it. But for quite a few projects, I have to be inside of Blender, and I want to make Blender as powerful as possible, if I can. So again, camera info, instance bounds. The scene info node, I do plan on getting in Blender 4.5 if I can figure out the dependency stuff. I should be able to borrow some stuff from the camera info node because that also uses scene information. But other than that, I would like to get this constraint into Blender, but I think it may be a little bit late for Blender 4.5 just because it's so new. I've informed the developers of its existence within the last month or last week, so it's a little bit yeah. While I would like to have it, in 4.5, I think it's a very slim chance that it would make it. But it would be very cool to have a new constraint, because when was the last time that we got a new constraint? I would have to look that up, but I think it's been a long time. And with this one, it takes advantage of, 4x4 matrix attributes, which did not exist a year ago. Or a little over a year ago, I forget. And then quaternions and vectors, all that could be quite good. Oh, and also you can change the the mix mode, which is independent of whether it's a vector, quaternion, and all that, because internally it's all a 4x4 matrix. I just include or take out some of the values. Because, yeah, alright. For here, I can just make the 4x4 matrix only apply the rotation, but I can make it apply to only the location or the scale just for convenience, even though the scale is completely unaffected. Let's see. So in short, are you modifying Blender to be more like Houdini? I would not say that, because Houdini is a very different beast when it comes to procedural stuff. If I just try to make Blender Houdini light, well, that could be cool. I think that's not exactly what I want to do. I have some workflows in mind that I want to do, and I want to make those better. Again, eliminating the workarounds that we have to do, like with this attribute transform node, rather than having to parent to a triangle or have tons of empties to make an object be aligned with deforming geometry and stuff like that. We can just get it directly, which is very nice. And then with the camera info node, well, that's just a good node to have to get the projection matrix and all that. Instance bounds is also nice. But yeah, they're just workflows that I've needed these nodes for, and it's good to have them rather than not having them. So that is good. Let's see, for as long as I'm using Blender, the constraint menu is looking pretty much the same besides the UI. Yeah, like the code for that is rather old. Every single constraint is inside of one file, and you have to reference it in about like 8 other files, which was very annoying to figure out. But yeah, like with geometry nodes, every node is its own file, and it's mostly self-contained. Like in some cases, if there's like RNA you need to deal with, you need to reference it in other files as well. But just seeing the change in convenience between the old code and the new code in Blender is very striking. Yep. Okay, so I think we've seen this guy dance around for a little bit too long, so let's move on to some other cool stuff. So this is going to be just a little experimental because I want to try out some cool stuff. Which version of Blender should I use for this? I could use Blender... Let's use Blender 4.5 because I like the inline sockets, even though... One moment. This will work in like Blender 4.3 or onward. I still want to at least try it. Or I want the aesthetic... Sorry, I'm trying to find the file that I'm going to be working in because I forgot where I put it. Ah, that's where I put it. Okay. So let's go over to that. One moment, everyone. Please discuss in the chat while I am occupied, and I'll read it as soon as I become unoccupied. Let's see. Let's go to... Dang, where did... Oh, there it is. Okay. I found it. Just took a little second. And then I need to also get another project. Let's see. So one second, everyone, while we go and traverse the different projects. I'm getting a horse model that is animated. And do I have the lion model in here? Yes, I do. Very nice. So I'll just go and yoink both of those from there and put it into this other version. So one moment, everyone, while I get that set up, because we're going to be doing cool things. Very, very cool things. Okay. Almost there. I apologize, everyone, that this is taking so incredibly long, but hopefully my commentary is a little bit better. You know, takes the edge off. Okay. And we should be... There we go. Okay. So this is my geometry nodes based surface deform setup, where it's basically a modifier where you can deform things with geometry nodes, which is very, very nice. It's like the old surface deform modifier, except that, well, it's geometry nodes based, and it's just quite a bit more convenient, and you can set the rest position to be whatever you want, so it's just more convenient than the old version, and considerably faster with different types of geometry. It works on curves, so if you have hair, it'll deform properly. It works with meshes, and it'll work with instances, which this is what we want, because I'm going to fracture this person and then deform the fracture pieces by that geometry. I'm also going to do that for both this lion model and this horse model, though it is a bit laggy because those are, well, we can go and lower that later. So let's go and clean up this file, delete everything else. I don't plan on saving this, maybe I will, but the main thing is we're just going to have some fun with this. So we're going to delete everything. Wait, is that the original or is this the clone? Ah, okay, yep, that was the clone. Let's go and put you right there. Oh my god. That was very unintentional. That was the wrong object. So let's go and put you right there. There we go, and delete you. So here, we're just going to do a little switcheroo with all this. So let's go and bring this body and move it over to here. And then we are going to go and cell fracture this, which I believe I have the cell fracture. Nope, I do not have the cell fracture add-on enabled. So let me go and just download that really quickly. Let's go into preferences. Fortunately, because of the new extensions platform, or actually that came out like a year ago at this point, I can easily just look it up and install it right now. So I don't even need to use my browser. So there we go, that seems to be good. It is now installed, I believe that's saved. Now, is it here? Cell, yes it is, okay. So here we go, now we're going to cell fracture this setup. So I'm going to set the noise to be like that, and the source limit, let's do 300 instances. No recursion, because I believe that's not necessary. Let's not apply the split edge. Interior vertex group, I don't think that's needed. Margin, I don't think we need that. Smooth interior, I think we're fine without it. Yeah, so let's go and run this so we can see the add-on is now running the cell fracture. I hope that we will be able to do this inside of... Sorry, one second everyone, I need to check something real quick. Some cool colors are going on outside. Okay, so there we go, we have all of these, and I'm going to put all of these cells in a collection. And then we're going to reference that collection of instances and deform them. So right here, I am going to, yeah, I'm just going to edit this geometry node. Actually, no, we're going to have a new geo node set up. So right here, let's go and get this. The stream is functioning as intended, very nice. We're going to bring ourselves into here, separate the children, set it to relative. I think that'll work out okay. Then plug that into there, and we can see that as simple as that, it is now working. Like, look at that. Let's go and enable the cavity shading, because that could look pretty cool. There we go. Look at that. So now this character is running, and the pieces of the mesh are well, not deforming, but the instances are being moved along according to the position, the normal, the tangent, and all that, and it just works so well. I really like how this is working. One user who was using the setup for something like this was wondering why the rotations were a bit messed up, and in their case, it was because the object did not have accurate UV maps, which that's something you need to keep in mind, which I think here... Oh, wait. Oh, they changed the overlays for this. UV editor. Is that working out okay? It looks like there may be an issue with the UV map here, but as long as we're not seeing any visual issues, it should be fine. So yeah, all that can deform, and we can do as many cells as we want, and it should work just fine. But I want to try this on a horse. So let's go over to here. Let's go and bring the horse over here, move this over. And yeah, let's just set this up from almost scratch. So let's go and... Ooh, what stage should we have this in? Because what is the rest position for this horse? It has a rest position. You can do that to add a rest position, or you can add it with just geometry nodes, just with the rest underscore position. So yeah, I don't know what the actual rest position is, so that may screw some things up. Let's actually just go and eliminate it just to take out all the guesswork. So let's go and delete all of these in order. And we're right there. That's fine. Okay, so it was that. Okay, let's move the still horse over to here. And now let's go and cell fracture the heck out of it. So let's go and be a little bit more ambitious. Let's set this to be 600 cells. And there we go. Will take a while. Let's see, 1 second everyone, I have to go and do some stuff. Got plans to do. Okay, that seems like it is done. 1 more second. Alright, so it looks like we have a rogue cell right here, where the boolean just did not work as intended. This is classic when it comes to Blender's booleans. Oh, looks like we got a few of them. Yes, particularly where there's like bunching up in the vertices or something like that, but we're just going to ignore that for now and pretend like it does not exist. So let's go and put all of these cells into a collection. So this will be HC for horse cells. Let's go and hide that. Hide the horse. Now where's the other horse? Here's the deforming horse. So what should we do with this? Let's go and make a geometry node object and make it so that this object has the collection right here. Wait. Oh, I forgot they added in a constant for collection stuff. So collection info, right. Let's go and bring this over to here. So we get these, separate children, set it to relative if you need to, put that over to there. And now we have all those cells. Now let's use the GN surface deform, make it so that it goes onto the horse and set this to be the instances version. Now we should see that it is now walking perfectly, besides the one issue where the entire horse mesh appears to also be attached, which is a little bit less than ideal, if you can believe that. So yes, that is with you. Let's just go and move you out of there, so that is not an issue. Okay. So here we can see that it's moving. We can see that there is a bit of bunching happening around the same place where that Boolean error happens. But for the most part, it's working pretty well. We are getting some lag spikes though, which I'm surprised by. In this case, we could just go, oh no, wait, we can't edit the deformation, or we can't edit the mesh of the horse because it's all shape keys. But that's just the way it exported. But we can see that it looks like the cells are like stretching and stuff like that, even though they're not. So if you wanted to make something like the thing from, oh yeah, and we can see that again. Oh yeah, that cell does not work well because like during its fracture state, it was bent, and with it being straight, it just does not work. So, like, there would have to be, like, almost manual slices here, or just, like, fracture that part more in order for it to work better. But yeah, cool things. Okay, I'm going to delete all of that, because, you know, it wasn't as good as I intended. I think the lion will be much better than this alternative. So this will be BC for the body cells. And we don't need you anymore. So let's go and eliminate the horse. And we're just going to go and bring out the lion. So here, we'll go and just remove that part from there. We'll go and put you into a new collection and then fracture the absolute heck out of it. Let's go and remove all of the shape key frames, which is very funny. I'm assuming like this was like an Alembic export or USD, or maybe just from another program. Everything just was like that. But yeah, we need that, which is good. And then I need to make sure, yep, we still have the old one. Let's go and cell fracture. So with this one, let's really push this to the limit. 1,000. And then let's go and run it. Oh god, this is gonna take a while. But yes, I hope everyone in the chat is having a wonderful day. Today has been quite good. Let's see. Almost done. Nope, we're still getting Boolean errors. Ah, so sad. I forget if they're going to be making a new version of the Boolean in the future. But yeah, we're just gonna deal with those errors as they come along. So we're going to put all of these cells again into a new collection, and then just go and do whatever we need to after that. Because we don't have collection nodes, so we have to make the kind of duplicate, which that's not a big deal. That's just incredibly easy to deal with. So again, if we want to reference a collection for deformation, we just go and put all of the parts onto an object, all of the instances onto an object, then add in the geometry node, or the GN, surface deform modifier, switch it to be instances, select the line walk, and there's no valid rest position. Oh no. Well, let's just go and enable the rest position right there, which is very convenient. And then we should see, if we hide the original mesh, that it's working, despite the obvious Boolean errors. But it does look quite cool. It seems like the human turned out the best out of all of these. Yeah. But yeah, we can fracture these as many times as we want, and as long as all the objects are in a collection, it'll work just fine. Let's read the chats. Cool, lol, nice, sick, hold on to your horses, lol, yep, you have to cut that part manually to hide it, yes, and then, hi man, how are you doing? I am doing quite well. Cool things are happening, very cool things are happening. Oh, and I forgot, have you thought about making a node course or tutorial because you know a lot more than the average Blender user? I've thought about it, and I don't really have the time for that right now. I'm trying to, especially after the lots of work, which was the Sonic movie, I've decided to tone it down a little bit, even though I basically switched from working on that to, now in my free time, I'm just working on like new Blender nodes and constraints and stuff like that. But I don't intend to be doing that for too long. I need to take a break, which soon I will. A very, very nice break. But yeah, I have thought about it, and I may do it in the future because it could be a very nice revenue stream for me and very informative to other users. But these live streams are kind of, you know, they're kind of just as good, well, except not edited, where people can learn a lot about my workflow just because they're seeing my actual workflow and thought process live. Yeah, look at that. So let's go back to the human because I really want to stress test this. Human, there's human. Where did the, there we go, okay. So we have this, but I want to fracture it even more. So do I have just the other, here, let's go and eliminate the other parts. So delete hierarchy. We'll keep you right there. Is the horse still here? Yeah. All the objects are clipping, fun. Let's go and delete you and delete you. So we're just going to bring the human. Nah, it's fine. We'll just go and bring the human right to here, hide everything else besides the human, reset all this. Oh, and also, by the way, I have a node group to store the rest position wherever you want, rather than having to use the shape key, like if your geometry is procedurally generated, because sometimes you don't want to use that checkbox. Even though it is convenient, there are cases where you don't want to use it. Okay, let's do this, and let's run the cell fracture, but in this case, we're going to do a bit of recursion, and set this to be 1,500. This will take a while, so get all your questions in right now so that I can read them. So 3, 2, 1, and 0. Let's go. Yep, this is gonna be a lot. But yeah, in terms of courses, I don't know what kinds of courses I would necessarily do, because what I'm working on varies so much. It's like, oh, would I do something in, like, I don't know, simulations? Because I say this with love, geometry node simulations still have a ways to go before they're up to like practical standards. Like my particle system is like the closest that I've gotten, but collisions are just that's something that just hasn't really been figured out in a good way yet. Because friction is still up in the air, collisions between like faces and faces, edge to edge, stuff like that. It's just a huge pain. Like there are functions for that under the hood inside of Blender. Wait, there's not enough fractures there. We need to go higher. We need more fractures. But like I thought, maybe I could try looking into a node to do that, but that would be so incredibly time-consuming and probably way above my level to try to implement. But if I can figure out how to get a good collision algorithm and stuff like that that's very generalized and then put that in, then simulations would become a lot more viable. And then people can make like node groups where it's just like, oh, cloth simulation, rope simulation, hair simulation, all of those. Like I've tried hair simulation, but again, collisions are always the worst. They are the absolute worst. And I dread every time I have to go and do that. Self-collisions are painful. Like collision points, like the rigid body system that I was working on could have worked if there was just something for the collision points. It was that close to greatness, but I just couldn't do it. Couldn't figure it out. And it probably would be extremely slow if I tried. Yeah. Though in that case, like just using bullet or what's the other physics library they were thinking about using for rigid bodies? I forget, but in those cases, yeah, that would be, just using an external library for rigid bodies would be the ideal scenario. But yes, let's go and change this to be random. Oh yeah, and now instances now show up with random colors as they should. But yeah, if you ever wanted to make the thing or any other kind of rock-based person, you can. Just have tons of instances. Ignore the clipping, ignore all that. That's something that's kind of just unavoidable in these cases. That's where fixed animation comes into play. Yep. Yeah, all that's looking pretty good. I did not pre-cook Eevee next, so this may... Oh, it looks like it's rendered okay. There we go. So let's add in a nice light right here. Raise Why is... Ah, there we go, okay. So we can have that, maybe make it a little bit softer. Maybe add in another light. Oh yeah, that's looking quite nice. A little too powerful because the material's so dark. Oh, this is something weird, which only kind of happens in Eevee Next, but this banding. It happened in the Mimic effect too, and I don't know why. Just, like, they changed something where this banding is very apparent in many situations. With darker materials. With high roughness, which I don't know if this actually has high roughness or not. Oh, it needs to cook. Yeah, no, this seems to have higher roughness. But yeah, for some reason the banding is atrocious on these materials, where in Eevee Legacy it would not be. But anyway. Does cell fracture give less Boolean errors with nice quad topology? I would assume so. From what I've seen, like, the Booleans usually freak out when there's like a convex area, like in the armpit or, you know, maybe around the crotch area. But yeah, it probably would. No, I think it would. I don't think it would care all too much between quads and tris. It's mainly just if polygons are overlapping. Then it's like, oh, which side is the inside, which side is the outside. Even here, we can see that the cell fracture seems to be having trouble with, like, what parts are actually accurate edges, which is unfortunate. But it is what it is. But yeah, that's one more thing, and I think we're almost at an hour, so I think we'll be wrapping this stream up. Again, I won't be streaming for a while, because I got stuff to do, some cool stuff in the near future. But yes, cool stuff is coming around in Blender 4.5. Hopefully I can work on a few more things and maybe get them in. But yes, 4.5 is going to be amazing, and even in the current versions of Blender, there's so much cool stuff that you can do. It's all up to your knowledge of matrix math and stuff like that. Where in this case, I'm essentially doing matrix math but with vectors, because apparently, like, I think this is being fixed, but matrix interpolation using, like, the nearest surface node is a little bit bugged, where it's a bit inaccurate, so I had to use the vector method, which oddly enough, I used in, like, Blender 3.6 for a cool project. So knowing the vector math and matrix math is very useful. And also, I think there's a performance increase by separating all the vectors. But that is besides the point. Oh, and also, here's the setup for smooth UV tangents, which for the longest time I was like, how do they make smooth UV tangents? Turns out, you just average the ones that aren't sharing a seam, and it's like, oh, that is a no-brainer. Why didn't I do that a year ago? But yeah, you never have to look inside this node group for this thing to work. I made it so that if you make a good setup, you never have to, or if you make a convenient product, you never have to look inside the GeoNode editor, unless this setup is explicitly made as like a part of geometry nodes. But if you're making a modifier, your main goal is so that the person never has to look inside the geometry node part of it. They'll just be like, oh, this is an interesting modifier that can do so much. But yeah, all that is at our disposal. So, I believe that is it for today. Ask your last questions now, or forever hold your peace. But yeah, good amount of people here on a very impromptu Tuesday night stream. Today is Tuesday, right? Yes, yes it is. Yes it is. Let's see. Let's change the shader for the cells, just because I feel like doing that. So let's go over to here. Actually, let's go and pin. Oh, we can see that this material is being used by 419 cells. That's because all the cells that were outside of the mesh were just eliminated, which is nice. Oh, we can say I was looking into UV tangents in the shader, yeah. Oh yeah, we can see that. And it, oh yeah, it transferred perfectly to the objects. How about that? But let's use the object info random input, because yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's connect that there. Yes, metallic and roughness. That's what's causing the banding. Let's take a look at this. We can see that that looks quite interesting, though still a bit noisy. Motion blur in the viewport. Yes. An EV Next motion blur now applies in the viewport. We can turn that off, but I do like my motion blur. Whenever you see like an animated show or movie and you're like, why does this look a little bit cheap? It's because they didn't render with motion blur, because that is expensive with ray tracers. Like if you don't do it in compositing. Like, oh boy, the render times, whew, they go up by a lot if you have motion blur. Let's see, let's put in a nice color ramp, which I do not have in my quick favorites in this version. Let's go. Oh, and in this version of Blender 4.5, I believe it's actually using the Vulkan backend, which I didn't think that would give a performance improvement yet. I think they're still working on it, but everything EV Next actually feels faster now, which is very nice. Though the noise, the blurry noise still persists, which we can, oh no, I already turned off everything else. Like spatial reuse you still want to keep there, but yeah, you can just see very blurry noise even at 1:1. Though I could turn this one to 1:1 as well, and that does help a good amount. If I change it to 1/16, I guess we can't see the blurry noise right now because it's just way too big. Here we can see that. Change it to 4, makes it a bit blurrier. So yeah, 1:1 or 1:16. So every 16 pixels, it'll do a sample or something around those lines. Yeah, let's see. But yeah, I think that is pretty much it for today. Here we go. Looks like candy. Jawbreaker man. Yeah, I would, oh, interesting, the motion blur froze. And there, yeah, there we go. Like if we just click here, we can see the motion blur. Which is very cool. Oh, it looks like it's multi-stepped. Wait, how many steps do I have running with this? It should be, yeah, no, it's only one. But yeah, we can see that the highlights with motion blur are kept intact, while regular blur doesn't really do that all too often. But I guess yeah, because the values get clamped. Yeah, nice highlights. All right, I think that'll be it for me for today. Again, if you have any feedback regarding the attribute constraints or attribute transform, the name may change in the future. But if you have any feedback regarding that, please just comment it there. If you want to go and get the mimic effects, which actually, yeah, let's go back to the original source of the stream, just to bring it right back around to the beginning. Let's see, which one? Let's go with the Tendril version. Yes, here we go. So if you want to get the mimic effect, again, the link is in the chat, the first thing in the chats. Which it is paid just because, like, I worked a lot on this project. Again, this is updating it from Blender 3.4 to 4.3, which was very necessary, but it is a very cool project. And yeah, if you want it, just check Gumroad. Yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you had a wonderful time here, and I will see you next time. Have a good one.